Hey, how's everybody doing? Hey, this is Combat Vet Vision. This was put together a long time ago. Brian Colburn talked me into it. He is the reason why this is going on. And I am with JB Brown, world-renowned chef. He's going to be talking here in a little while. I'm just going to go into this intro. It's been a long time. I'm Aaron Siebert, retired Navy chief, lucky to be alive after being hit with a mortar round. I do this podcast for a lot of reasons. One is I'm heavily involved in the veteran community for a lot of different things, a lot of different reasons. Ultimately, I'm looking at our veterans and I'm seeing their pathways, and I want to make sure that they're hitting those pathways the way that they want to. And those pathways involve a lot of different things, a lot of different organizations making a lot of different impacts. You're going to hear me talk a lot about Warrior Built, a lot about the Veterans Transition Resource Center, which is the studio this podcast is now being featured from. Brian Colburn is obviously running this from sitchradio.com, from behind the scenes all over the place. There's a lot of cool things. I got Recon Chief on deck, Mike DeLeon. He's with me, so he's going to pop his face on here just so you guys can see it. But he's going to come on later on in the shows down the future and talk about a lot of things. A lot of really cool, incredible things that go on in here. And the reason why it's live is because I want to disseminate the information to our veterans as I see that it kind of comes down. Veterans want to tell their stories. Our veterans, our sponsor supporters, volunteers, whatever it looks like. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of events going on out there. There's a lot of incredible stories. There's a lot of incredible things going on. So it becomes an opportunity to hear somebody's story. And we're going to hear from JB's story. And it used to be a really cool thing for me to always think, you hear the national anthem, you're told, hey, to stand up when your national anthem's being played. And as it's going around and they play the Coast Guard's national anthem, everybody's always curious who's going to stand up, right? Because the Coast Guard, there's very few Coast Guardies that are out there. Well, we got one. We got a Coast Guard guy, world-renowned chef, JB Brown. He's going to tell a story. We're going to get into that. There's going to be a lot of stories down the future. But JB, hey, welcome to the show. He's my co-host. You're going to hear a lot about him. His whole segment is JB's Kitchen. It's going to be on the show. It's going to be a lot. JB, welcome to the show. Welcome to being my host. Thank you for having me and hosting me in the VTRC in Las Vegas to help our veterans. So go ahead,
hey,
JB.
Good afternoon, Aaron, and good afternoon, Brian. Thanks for helping us out here. The Veterans Transition Resource Center is a nonprofit 501c3, and we're here to help veterans in the Las Vegas area, also in the Reno area. We try to cover the whole state of Nevada. We're open 5 days a week. We do a radio show on Saturday called The Forgotten Promises,
right out of the studio.
11 o'clock at 8:40 a.m. right out of this studio. So now we're doing a podcast every Tuesday at 1 p.m. And part of that podcast will be Chef's Kitchen. A little bit about me. I was in the Coast Guard. I decided a long time ago that I really didn't want to hurt anybody. I'd rather save somebody. Sort of like you, Chief. You were medical, so
Navy
Corpsman. Navy Corpsman. You still carried a rifle, or a weapon, but you still save people, and that was my thoughts. So I went in the Coast Guard. I went to sea on a ship right after boot camp. I didn't cook on a ship. I cooked before I went in the Coast Guard. I was in kitchens in 1964. I was 12 years old, and I was just turning 13, and I washed dishes by hand. And I made the great sum of 75 cents an hour. So my first paycheck was about $8.75 that I got to take home. But that was a long time ago. When I got out of the Coast Guard, one of the things that I did in the Coast Guard, I was on a motor lifeboat station in Florence, Oregon. And our cook was terribly hurt in a car accident. He broke his back and other problems that he had. So he was out for like 7.5 months. And the chief of the Coast Guard said, anybody cook here? Because we didn't have a cook. There was no other cooks to come in. I raised my hand and I said, yes, I've cooked ever since I was about 11 years old. He said, good, JB, you're our cook. And so I was the cook on the Coast Guard base for about 5.5 to 6.5 months. When I mustered out in 1973, I was on my way home and I stopped, and they had a sign saying dishwasher / cook needed. So I applied and I started working back in the industry. And along the way, about 3 or 4 months later, I heard a chef, a really renowned chef, was needing an assistant. So I went to go apply. He interviewed me. He said, "You're the kind of guy I'm looking for. You're a veteran. You're already halfway home." He said, "When can you start?" I said, "Now," and I did. And he said to me, "If you're going to be my apprentice, you're going to have to join the ACF. That's the American Culinary Federation. And that is the only recognized chefs accredited institution in the United States." So I said, okay. I joined 1/1 of 74, which was over 50 years ago. And I've been a member ever since. And after that stint with him of 18 months, so he got me accepted as the first Vietnam veteran era GI on the GI Bill for OJT, on the job training for chefs. We actually set up the program with the ACF and the VA and Department of Employment. So I finished my 18 months. I started on my road down the road, becoming a sous chef. I worked for the next 20 years to get my certification as a certified sous chef, then as a certified working chef. And when I was in Oregon, things were kind of drying up in the late 70s. They were going through, gas crisis and employment crisis on the West Coast. So I moved to the Midwest. I applied for a job and got it at a Sheraton in Oklahoma City. So I went to the Sheraton. I worked in several hotels in Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas. I worked for Hilton, the largest hotel and convention center. And that's when I really got my passion. I was about 35 to 38. And I really liked volume. I liked big numbers. 10,000 didn't scare me, 20,000 didn't. So I applied. I'd been coming to Las Vegas to try to get to Las Vegas for about 8 years, and I didn't have any juice. And so the Excalibur was opening, and the executive chef didn't want to get a chef from Las Vegas. So, in fact, I opened Fifth Seasons at a Sheraton in Oklahoma City with him. He was the corporate chef for Brock that owned the rights to the Fifth Season upscale restaurant. So I knew him from that. I flew out here. I said, send me a ticket. He sent me an airplane ticket. I flew out. I met him at 11 o'clock at night. We were doing tastings at the Prime Rib Room. Sat down, had a nice dinner with him. I'm in my shorts and my golf shirt. And he says, good. Well, tomorrow morning you'd be in my office at 9 a.m. And I said, oh, good, because I'm going to put on a suit and a tie, a nice suit coat and a tie. He says, for an interview. And he says, oh, no, you're already hired. You're just going to meet the food and beverage director. And that's how I came to I went home, closed up everything, and came back to Las Vegas. And we opened up the Excalibur in 1990 in May. when we started, we were feeding 32,000 people a day with 700 employees. And the thing, Excalibur was great, except I was an executive chef that really liked to work with food and the displays, everything. And all I was a glorified babysitter for 700 employees. I had to do rounds every night. I was the night chef because I was the most experienced, and I was already a certified executive chef then. I had to do the cycle menus for the buffet. 17,000 people ate on the buffet every day, just to give you some ideas. And it was just not what I was really looking for. I was more looking forward to getting my hands dirty, actually partaking of being an executive chef. So I heard the Sands Expo and Convention Center was opening. So I went to an interview, and here's a town I couldn't get into for 8 years. I went to the interview. He says, I've been in the business 45 years. His name was Jerry Jonda. He says, I've never hired anybody on the spot, but if you want the job, it's Monday. Sunday, we start Comdex. I said, great. He says, okay, you're hired. He says, if you're here and at the end of Comdex, you got a job for as long as I'm working here, because that'll say something about you. And that first Comdex, we did 587,000 meals in 5 days. We didn't, nothing was turned on. All of my equipment was in boxes in the middle of the kitchen. I hired about 650 people in 2 days. One of the great things was I was at the Excalibur, so I had a big employee pool. And in those days in the union, if you had a union job, you couldn't work another union job because you were taking it away from a union member. And we were non-union. So a lot of guys wanted 2 jobs. It was for a week and a half. So a lot of my cooks on the days and on nights from Excalibur came over. They brought me cooks from the Mirage, from the Tropicana, everybody, it's a kind of a close network. So we opened up with 10,000 people for an hors d'oeuvre and opening reception for Comdex on that Sunday night. We did $26 million, and till the day Sheldon Adelson died, he said, nobody has ever done it. I can't understand. We did 69% net profit on that 5 days that we were open for the first Comdex in food and beverage. It was just unbelievable. Everything just kind of fell into place. It was wonderful. We did, while I was at the Sands, we did a sit down for 5,000. Got to be organized to do one of those on China. 5-course meal for UNLV the year they won the championship in 91. So the basketball championship. And a real quick funny story about that was we had everything. I had everything organized. And at the last minute, the guy that was supposed to put the dressing on the salad, he had to go down and make coffee because somebody had forgotten to order coffee. So getting 5,000 coffee cups and saucers on the tables, we had about 900 penguins, black and white servers. And so he had to go downstairs and make coffee in our coffee urns, which is a process in itself. So there was nobody to take his place. And I had a bacon vinaigrette dressing, balsamic vinaigrette dressing for the salad. And all of a sudden I started hearing, chef, everybody's asking for dressing on the salad. I said, it's already dressed. It's got a really great dressing on it. What do you mean they're asking? And I mean, probably got 100, 150, 200 calls in the span of like 20 minutes. Finally got through that course. At the end of the dinner, I walked back to where they were dishing salads, and here were a bunch of buckets, and over on the side was all the buckets with the bacon vinaigrette dressing. They put the lemonade that I brought up to for the penguins to drink with their dinner, and they put it on the salad for salad dressing. I was so angry. I kicked this bucket and it went up into the rafters. And this place is at the expo was like you could park the 747s wing to wing inside this thing. So the rafters are probably 30, 40 feet up. And I put this bucket, this 5-gallon bucket that was empty with lettuce in the bottom, up into the rafters. And the MC was um, the guy that took over Johnny Carson's show. I had his name and then I forgot it, but he came in a limo. A limo was waiting for him. The bucket almost hit him. He goes, "Holy Christ, chef, you almost hit me with that bucket." Jay Leno. I said, "Jay," I said, "I didn't mean to hit you or even come close to you." He says, "You're awful upset." He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing now." I'm like upset with myself. And he says, "Well, why don't you get in the limo? I got to go over to Caesar's. It's just across the street and stuff. I'll have the limo bring you back. We can talk a little bit. You're a pretty interesting guy." So I took the 10-minute trip to Caesar's with him, talked with Jay. He gave me a hug and said, "Everything's going to be better." Great guy. Great guy. They brought me back. So my time there was really good. I really loved that job. I probably would still have been there today. Maybe not today, but because I'm getting older. But I they were they were tearing down the Sands Expo and building the Venetian. So he had the food and beverage staff up there under contract, the managers. So they brought him down to the expo, eliminated my job. And that was the second job that was eliminated. And I started looking around. I started with a food purveyor, which is now US Foods, but back then it was Valley Foods, big in the Valley. Um, so I worked for them for about 3 years. I was doing a little catering on the side because I'd met a lot of people. I helped, I'm one of the founding fathers of Chef for Kids, which is a great program that feeds at-risk students here in the Las Vegas area. We started with one school. Now we've got like 13 schools that we provide snacks and nutritional information. And it's just a really great program. And we had a lot of who's who in Las Vegas. Steve and Steve Wynn's wife, Lorraine, they were our first guest people for the program the first year we did it. And so I met a lot of who's who. And all of a sudden they started saying, "Chef, can you cater this? Can you cater that?" And I was doing a little catering on the side. And I thought, I think I better become a caterer. It was something new for me. I'd catered in restaurants, but never outside of a restaurant or a hotel setting. And so I started catering by the chefs in 1994, 95. And within a year, I was doing $1 million worth of business just in catering. It was just unbelievable. But uncontrolled growth is as bad as no growth. I was a great chef. I could move things. I knew people. I was a great leader, but business sense, I had to learn on the fly. And IRS, they've got a lot of requirements, and you got to keep up with things. So eventually, I overcome everything. In 2017, I tried 3 times. I'd been denied 41 years to get my disability from the Coast Guard. And I came to the VTRC to do fundraisers for them, donate my time. I'd always donated like to fundraisers for Susan G. Komen Foundation, breast cancer. If it was a 501c3, I always would do it with my company just to give back. So I was doing the VTRC pig out for him since about 2013. And in 2016, I said to one of the co-founders, Jim Littner, you know, I've been trying all this time and I've been denied each time. And he said, bring your paperwork, come see me. I'll introduce you to one of our claims adjusters here at the VTRC. I sat down with him 20 minutes. He told me to do two things. I did it. He sent it in February, and July of 2017, they gave me 100% right out of the gate.
And that's a heck of a wait. And you told me a story, and this is important because, you know, when we're talking about, you know, benefits and, you know, just taking care of our veterans, right, and taking care of our people, and you being in the military, and we're supposed to take care of our troops, we're supposed to take care of our guys, right?
Yes.
Anyway, your process of getting out of the Coast Guard, that's a crazy story.
Well,
if you want to share that story, I mean, you shared it in the room with me a little while ago, a couple weeks ago, and I thought that was such a, you know, that's a kind of story that will, you know, that probably has happened to our service member more than you would think, where
right.
I
was on a motor lifeboat station in Florence, Oregon, and the people that where we went to the doctor at was in Winchester Bay, about 16 miles away, and it was a small town of maybe 3,000 or 4,000. Old country doctor. My lymph nodes started swelling up. I wasn't sleeping well. You know, we had to do duty every other night because we were short manned. Plus, I was cooking during the day, and I still had to do my seaman's duties, and it was hard. And I'd go down to see him, and he'd say, "Oh, you just have mono," and my body just kept going downhill, downhill, downhill. I'd go back a couple weeks later. Oh, it's a lingering mono case. You're okay. Full duty. You know, he wouldn't give me medical or anything else. So after about 4 months of this, you know, now we understand that sleep deprivation syndrome is real. And when you're not sleeping, you're deprived. And so your body goes down. And I just didn't have any energy. And I was coming up on a weekend. So I went home for the weekend and I told my parents, no matter what you hear, it's okay. I'm going to Seattle to it was a Siemens hospital in Seattle where we did because we were a Department of Transportation. So I went there to sick call. The doctor took one look at me and he said, "You're in the hospital, son." And I spent 5 weeks in terminal ward because they thought I had non-lymphoma Hodgkin's, or because all my lymph nodes were blown up. And they were trying all this stuff. And a touring doctor happened to stop and take a look at my case, checked one thing, and it was a rare parasite virus disease that I had. Gave me some medication for it. I was out of the hospital in 2 weeks in Bay, Seattle. And they said, "Okay, well, you're pretty well now, so you're going to be better. So we're going to send you back down to Florence."
Back to your duty station.
Yeah, back to my duty station. And I said, "I don't know." I was pretty discouraged at that time. And I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And there was just a lot of things. I was young. I was not even 21 yet, or I was barely 21. And I thought there'd be a better life. I didn't know, you know, I still had about a year and 3 or 4 months. And so they said, "Well, you're going to go to Bay Seattle. We'll talk." So they came, they brought me to the hospital, they evaluated me, they said, well, it looks like you're okay, but you're not okay. So we're going to put you at base Seattle and determine what to do with you. And so they sent me down to the Coast Guard base. So I found my way down to the Coast Guard base, and the chief at the Coast Guard base said, you're in duty section 3, and this was a Friday. He says, you're off for the weekend. You be in my office Monday morning in your dress blues. And he says, we're going to Coos Bay. That's the Coast Guard office for that area. And I said, what are they going to do? Court-martial me? And he said, no, you're getting out Monday morning as soon as we show up. I said, out? He says, yeah, you're getting released of duty with general honorable conditions. And so I went home, told my parents, came back, got out of the Coast Guard, and that's how I got out. But, you know, my heart has always been with the troops, veterans. You know, today I donate my time here to the VTRC because they got my disability for me. But anytime somebody comes and asks me to use my culinary knowledge for something I do, I had a group out of Houston, Texas that wanted me to, I had a shared kitchen. They said, we need a shared kitchen. I said, okay, we can use this one. And they had a government contract feeding the troops. So we went and he showed up, the executive chef. He was a Army door kicker in Iraq and Afghanistan, got blown up 3 different times. His name's Chef Casey Benson. And we worked on feeding 134 guys 2 meals or 3 meals a day. And it was really great. I mean,
that is. Hey, chef, we got to wrap this up, but
okay.
But hey, I tell you what, you know, you're going to be my co-host for a long time.
We're gonna have we got lots of stories.
I didn't mean to cut you off and tell this story, but the impact of that story is super important to me, and I think it's super important for our veterans to know. You know, they're not the only ones that are getting, you know, kind of tossed aside and out a certain way.
We see it every day here at the VTRC.
And years of waiting for your benefits. I mean, that's an incredible thing. You know, it's awesome to have this platform. And Brian Colburn, thanks for making it happen. Hey, Mike, show your face real quick. Mike DeLeon on deck real quick.
Yeah, come on in here.
Recon Chief. You're going to see a lot of him. He's the reason why I'm here. He's doing a lot of really incredible things. He introduced me to Chef a long time ago, and about a year and a half ago. And then we finally got together and made things happen. But I'm living in Henderson, Nevada, so it's really convenient for me to be here and knocking this thing out. Brian Colburn from behind the scenes all the way in California. We're going to talk to him next week, doing a whole lot of things and just talking about what he does with a whole bunch of podcasting possibilities for our veterans. And into the future, after the show, a lot of times what we're going to do is we're going to take a half-hour break. And coming up in 3 weeks, we're going to talk about that. We're going to have an open house. An open house is going to be a link for you, the listener, to kind of pop on and just be accountable. You know, talk about something that you want to talk about. Maybe ask a question to one of us, or you know, just give us some feedback. Maybe you want to be on the show. Maybe you want to talk about something. There's gonna be some really cool stuff. So we're gonna have an open house for about an hour after the show on Zoom. There'll be a link for that. And we look forward to throwing that out. That's going to come about in about 3 weeks. So next week, you know, we got Brian Colburn. We're going to talk about the VTRC more extensively. Chef's going to be able to tell some more stories, some other things that he wants to talk about too. And then I think we're going to have in 3 weeks, we're going to have Mike on deck talking about a lot of things he's been doing this year. He's got back from the Chiefs. You know, just them getting ready to put on their anchors on the 15th, 16th time frame this year for all the new chiefs that just took over that are going to take over the Navy. So we're looking forward to seeing that. So, hey, until next time, hey, Chef, you got any last words before we go? And I just want to put one other comment out there. Hey, we lost Todd Cochran recently. Todd Cochran is a Navy chief, Navy senior chief that passed away recently. He's really he's the reason why podcasting was such an important aspect to what was going on. He's 25 years in the Navy. He podcast Hall of Fame, did an incredible thing to make podcasting possible for a lot of us. He was a pioneer for it all, has multiple different podcasts and a lot of different things. Chef, any final words for you two, brother?
Thank you, Brian, for helping us out. And thank you, Aaron and Mike.
Mike, thanks.
We look forward to talking with you guys. And, we might not have all the answers, but ask us. We'll try.
Yeah. So until next time, strength and honor. Out.
Yep.
The only way, and we need nothing more. The only way, together forever, that's for sure.